Have you ever been around or you have dogs in your neighborhood or maybe in your house that bark, that drive you crazy? I don't know about you, but barking dogs drive me crazy. And many people think it's bad dog. And they are embarrassed when people come to their house and their dog barks. They're embarrassed when they're in public, they're walking the dog lights up on somebody. They're embarrassed because they take it personal. But you know what? It's not personal. And it's not disobedient. Barking is your dog's way to talk to you, to give you a message. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about 5 conversations that your dogs try to have with you and what the number one thing to not do is, and what the number one tool in your toolbox that you have, everybody has, that will be your best solution. And oftentimes owners, particularly if you've got a newly adopted dog from the shelter, you think it's the kind thing to do. You don't want to yell at them. Certainly don't want to hit them, and we don't hit them for barking anyways. That makes no sense. But you don't want to yell at him. You don't want to make him feel bad. He'll get over it. But no, he won't get over it. He'll get into it. And he'll think that, well, is this what I did at the shelter because that was the only way I could be heard and get food and everybody else was chaotic, so I guess it's the same thing here. No, you want to figure out why they're barking, provide a predictable daily routine, intervene when it's possible, and in a way that the dog understands, and stay calm, because calm creates calm. You've noticed I've used that word a lot in this conversation. Predictability and calm energy. Those are your 2 magic pills if there is such a thing. So let's get into it. When dogs are barking, they're trying to give you a message because something's not clear for them. They may be confused, they may be afraid, some need hasn't been met, or something's not being managed appropriately in a way that they understand. And most people misinterpret that. You know, they wait too long, they think if I just ignore it, it's gonna go away, and he'll grow out of it, especially if you've got a puppy that you've thrown out in the backyard and he barks all day long. And the longer the behavior persists without something happening to either address the message they're trying to tell you or to redirect their mindset into something else, the more ingrained that behavior comes. Many people wait far too long, particularly when it comes to the neighbor's dog barking. It might not even be your dog barking. And so you sit out on the deck, and instead of just going over and talking to Joe next door, whose dog just is relentlessly barking through the fence at you, you go in the house. And over time that creates resentment with your neighbor and a dislike of the dog, and yet the dog's just trying to deliver a message. So in today's episode, let's get into it. When I was a kid, dogs used to run loose in the neighborhood, and we had one right across the road that came into season every 6 months, and she was never in the house, she was always outside, so all the boys came in every 6 months. And there was a party out front of their house, which was basically right under my parents' bedroom window. And rather than going and talking to the neighbors, my dad would wake up in the night, and I didn't hear it, I was a kid and I got my door closed. He would curse and swear and stomp around the house and slam doors and slam windows. And I didn't do anything for the dog, but it certainly created a lifelong trauma for me. I have about this much tolerance for barking dogs. Fast forward, many, many years ahead, and we have neighbors. I live in 100 acres. We have neighbors here that bark. Do I go and talk to them? Nope. I shut my windows, but I have air conditioning. So finally, when one neighbor was about to make a change, I did say to her, what are you going to do with the dog? And I explained to her what happened, and she was horrified because she couldn't believe that I had let it go that long. And I said, well, it was her parents and they're nice people and so on. So don't let it go. The number one complaint that bylaw enforcement officers get is often about not about dogs at large anymore. It's about barking dogs, because the new bylaws that restrict dogs' activity, and with people's schedules being so busy, the dogs have unmet needs. Barking is often an energy outlet. So let's talk about each conversation that your dog's trying to have with you. Why is it that barking is so upsetting? To humans, sound in general is a stress trigger. Police, bylaw enforcement officers, they get more complaints about noise than anything else. Even if it's an argument, that's noise. If it's a party, that's noise. If it's loud music, that's noise. And it triggers some inner reaction in people. And when it's a barking dog, it's over the top. Why? Because either as owners or as neighbors, we feel we have no control over the behavior. And now what happens is now we're embarrassed because it's our dog. where if we're in public and the dog lunges and barks, we're embarrassed because our society says dogs aren't supposed to do that. They're supposed to be nice and happy. And yes, they are when their needs are met. So dogs that bark become labeled as problem dogs because problem barking is really equivalent to a problem dog in the owner's mind. Dogs that are known to be problem dogs are often labeled as stubborn, bad dogs, untrainable, and that really is projecting the emphasis in the wrong direction. Just so you know, it's not about the dog. Interesting. And I get that. It's not just annoying, it's emotional pressure. Holy smokes. Try going to work the next day when your neighbor's dog's been barking all day long. Or when your dog's been barking. Hopefully you don't allow that to happen. But who really needs that kind of stress in their lives? Nobody. So remember, noise is a trigger. And barking dogs particularly can trigger things in you and in your neighbors. So dogs aren't barking to be difficult. As we mentioned at the beginning, they bark even though it's annoying because they're barking, there's something that's not right. And if it's ignored, it escalates because think of your kids. You don't pay attention to what they're asking you, whether it's they can or they can't do it. They're going to keep pestering you, and barking to a dog is just that way. You're not hearing me, I have to be louder. You're not hearing me, I have to continue. That's what barking is. That's the message. So if you ignore it, thinking they'll just grow out of it, wrong. They will grow into it, and that will become a habit that will be very, very difficult to break without extreme measures, and you don't have to go that way. You do not want to ignore it until the behavior escalates. The number one problem that dog trainers often get from people are the questions they get by phone calls. 2 questions. One of them is, of course, there's 3. Recall, leash pulling, and how do I make my dog stop barking? And the trainer that jumps into solutions is not the person you want to talk to. You want to, before you call the trainer, you can do this yourself. Ask the question. Why is my dog barking? Oh, I leave him in the backyard. He gets plenty of exercise. No, we're going to dig into that. So let's look at it and see what that means. If barking were just noise, just the dog like entertaining himself, an interruption by you, like a stop barking, would work. But it's more than that. And the solution isn't to say stop barking. The number one thing to not do is to yell at your dog. Stop it! Stop barking! Shut up! And I know, ask me how I know that it feels like that's what you want to do. And sometimes they'll do this, but it doesn't make the behavior go away on a permanent basis. Because barking is communication. So the solution, first of all, let's look at the 5 buckets that barking falls into. 5 reasons why dogs bark. Number 1, probably the most common, is alert barking. What does alert barking mean? Well, it means the dog is feeling threatened, or they are giving you, they're social animals, so they're letting you know, hey, somebody's here, I need you to come, you come and see, right? And you go, well, you know, Uncle Joe, what are you barking at him for? Because I just wanted you to know he was here. And when you yell at them and Uncle Joe comes in, he goes, oh, Spot, it's so good to see you. Man, how clear is that to the dog? That's confusing. And I see it all the time when people say, probably the number 1 question I get on Instagram is, how do I stop my dog barking from anyone who comes to the door, any car that drives in the driveway, any person that walks by the road? So always says, what do you do now? I yell at him to stop barking. And does he do it? No. All right. So that's barking number 1. We're going to get into the solutions shortly. Property lines. Dogs can be very protective, so they're alerting you that somebody's crossing the property. I need to do something. You need to get here. If no one responds to that alert barking, it escalates. It escalates. And if you stand back and yell, quiet, it escalates. If you calmly walk up and interrupt and go between wherever the dog is barking, try to practice this beforehand, teach them to move out of your space. Hey, it's all right, I've got this. Thank you, got this. Teach them a job, go to their place, wherever they would go to be calm. That's how you deal with alert barking. Acknowledge the dog is doing you a service and make sure that they know that you're there and you've intervened and everything is okay. When humans interrupt in a way that's calm and the dog understands, the barking will de-escalate. They might still give a little woof or maybe even a bark, 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 but as soon as you get to the door, they go, okay, you got it, thanks, and they'll go to their spot and lay down. Most people continue on barking, quiet, got it, and the dog just is confused. So because they're doing a job, calm creates calm. Dogs will bark less when they know someone is handling the situation. Demand barking, otherwise known as protest barking in some situations, but it's still the same message. The message is, I want something to happen and it's not happening. And humans inadvertently create that communication line, often without even realizing it. So think about this. A puppy comes home in a crate, bark, bark, bark. Oh, he doesn't like the crate, so you take him out. You've just reinforced for your dog that barking is the way to get out of a situation that he doesn't like. So look for the possibilities for that to escalate. That's how it goes. At meal times, if you're not moving fast enough, dog starts barking, and what do? You move faster. You get the kibble and get the bowl, and you rush. Here you go. Dog realizes, barking makes her move faster. Cool. Or maybe you play a game with them, like a tug game, and the dog loves it. I have a dog here, a little Frenchie, that loves to play tug. His owners have done a fantastic job teaching him all the rules of engagement. You know, take it, shake it. When I say out, you let go, you sit down. If it comes out accidentally, you sit down. Love it. You know, he's so good. But he's obsessed. And how do they deal with that? I asked them, I say, he comes here, he barks like he knows where every tug toy is hidden. And he said, well, we just play with him. When he was a puppy, he would sit on the floor and bark at them. And the solution was, think about this, people. Have you ever done this? Your dog's barking and you pick him up. What have you reinforced for the dog? Barking gets me the cuddles that I want. But the biggest one is the crate. And oftentimes it comes from, if the breeder hasn't conditioned your puppy to be alone in a crate for even a short period of time, and you bring them home and put them in a crate, even for a short period of time, they're gonna bark, they might be stressed. And the normal, I get it, it's painful to hear. You wanna let them out and reassure them that it's okay. Some dogs never get past that. But the solution is you just build it slower. Don't rush to get them out. You come home from work, puppy's calm in the crate, you let him stay calm in the crate. You don't wait till he wakes up and starts getting all excited, but you can bring him out when you're finished changing your clothes. And you'll build that routine. That's part of the daily routine. They'll start to know that, okay, I see her, she's in the house, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's my time. I'm still in the crate. Trust me, they're not gonna pee in the crate unless they've got something else going on. So a lot of people think that when a dog's barking in the crate or he's barking to get put up on your lap, he's manipulating you. And yes, dogs are master manipulators. But really, what's happening is you're teaching a learning pattern. You're teaching them that conversation has a result that works for the dog. And they're not obnoxious about it. They just know that if they persist, there's a book by Gavin de Becker called The Gift of Fear. It's totally not about this, but it's the same principle that your dog will learn this, that if you wait, you let him bark, and then after a minute's a long time when you've got a dog barking in your ear, you just go, oh, never mind, and you pick him up. That's how it starts. Or you walk in the house and he's barking in the house in his crate, and you think he's gonna pee in the crate. Wait, I just go. A minute's a long time. But if you turn and you go back out, and then you come back in, the dog's quiet, then you can go and open the door to the crate. Dog goes, oh, barking doesn't make her move faster, it makes them go away. And I want out. So, barking to get something like a toy, like affection, like a game started, and like freedom from the crate, it's not manipulation, it's patterned learning that we inadvertently oftentimes don't. Dogs are masters at this. They watch everything. We sometimes don't even realize it's happened. So it's not a bad thing, but it's just clear. It's important to be clear on why the dog is barking so that you can do the appropriate thing, and it might mean wearing earplugs for a little while. I've had dogs here that they're relentless, and I'll send outside. I've recorded them in 45 minutes, and painful. And you come back and they're asleep, and you let them out, and pretty soon the next day it's 30 minutes. The next day it's 20 minutes. The next day it's 10 minutes. Pretty soon it's not at all. They still don't like it, but they know that it's temporary. But they also know that they can't control the narrative. That's your job. Many people often think that they don't have time to train the dog. So they put him out in the backyard, and think that's plenty. He's out in the backyard. If you're a trainer, how many times have you heard this? When you ask the question, well, okay, so tell me about the day, how much exercise does he get? Oh, he's in the backyard for 2 or 3 hours, and we still can't get him to settle down. Because that becomes what we call mindless expenditure of energy. If you take just 2 minutes to make the dog wait at the door, step out through the door, that means you've got to teach them how to sit and stay sitting until you release them from the sit to come and sit again in front of you, and then release them to the yard, maybe step down into the yard, toss a ball, no more than 3 times, then put the ball away. That is fulfillment. That is giving your dog a job. It doesn't seem like much, but if you do that, then you let them have a bit of a break, and then maybe you do some little short leash drills. Maybe you just make them sit at the door to come back in. It's still a job. They still have to think about it, and they'll still push the boundaries. So people think that the backyard, or what we call mindless expenditure of energy. How many of you have heard this or have done this? So how does a dog get his exercise? Oh, I just sit here, I just watch TV, and I just throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball. My arm's gonna fall out, but I just keep throwing the ball. That is mindless expenditure of energy. It is not a thinking dog. It is not creating a thinking dog. It's creating an obsessive compulsive dog. Or you put the dog on a treadmill. Now, treadmills are great training to build focus if you limit it to 5 minutes. You don't put them on there for an hour, because then you're building an athlete who can't stop. And the whole idea of providing a dog with a job is to give them an off switch. And off switches have to be taught. You're going to hear that through we're at number 3. We've talked about anxiety. We've talked about alert barking when something happens and they want you engaged. Talked about demand barking when they want something to happen and they want you engaged. And now we've talked about boredom and frustration barking because there's a gap. They're bored out of their minds and they have to get rid of that energy somewhere. It's pent up energy and they have to get rid of it, and it's not mentally healthy for the dog. There's a phrase that says a tired dog is a good dog. I don't totally agree with that. I like to say that a tired dog is a dog with a job that's been fulfilled, and they know when it's time to rest, and they know they have a purpose in life. There's some breeds that should never be house pets. They were born to be in the field, and people buy them as house pets because they're loyal, they're smart, they do all kinds of things, and then they don't understand why the dog is barking, nipping, tearing things up. Dogs need jobs, and they need jobs that require them to think and solve problems because they are master problem solvers. That's what they're born. That's what they're bred for. Regardless of the breed, all dogs are bred to have a job. And without that, boredom and frustration sets in, and that can show up as endless barking. That's the kind of barking, and they just walk around the yard, bark, 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 walk around the yard, bark, 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 or they heard people going back and forth along the fence to bark at them because that becomes a job for them because no one else is telling them any different. So A, you never leave the dog unsupervised in the yard. B, you take them out instead of just kicking them out, unless you've taught them to go out, like if it's a bad weather, they'll go out and pee and come back in, but you always give them a job, wait at the door, do something, because a fulfilled mind is a calm dog. So this next barking type, the next bucket where dogs park their barking, is often confused with seeking attention. And that's anxiety barking. And it is oftentimes related to separation anxiety. They don't want to be alone. But it is based in the dog's inability to cope with its environment. What's happening? If you take it into a busy place, you might find your dog is shaking and they whine and they drool. Maybe they'll bark. But if they're left alone in an apartment, particularly if they've come from a shelter that's been busy and chaotic and predictable, and all of a sudden it's dead quiet, if that's you, many people believe the dog should be happy because you're in a calm environment. It's quite the opposite. A, because the predictability has changed, and dogs don't adjust to sudden change very well. They need to be led into it. And the best way to lead them into sudden change, particularly if you've adopted a dog from a shelter, is to start in a routine every day that involves a structured walk, maybe some free sniff time, some rest time, and some playtime with you, all with you, so that the dog, and have them have those things, break them up. They don't have to be hours and hours. It's like a 20-minute session in the morning, and then in the afternoon, and then in the evening, and you can adjust the times on those. But you want your dog to understand they can count on you to provide that enrichment and that fulfillment every day on a predictable basis. That is one of the best ways to relieve anxiety. And it doesn't have to be big. It can start really, really small. A lot of times anxiety is created by, they wind up because you pick up your car keys. And what that tells the dog is you're leaving. And if your dog is already not wanting to be left alone and you haven't made going to the crate a good thing, which I highly recommend because they know that's their outlet, then they start to get anxious and they might start to whine. And then as soon as you go out the door, they start to bark. Maybe they chew things. It just escalates because there's nobody there to relieve them. The solution to that is to break it down even smaller. Walk around the house, pick up your keys 100 times a day and put them down. And then pick up the keys, put them in your pocket, maybe take the dog with you for a quick walk. Keep that working schedule, but in between you're going to pick up the keys. You want to desensitize the dog to the thing that's making it anxious. And sometimes it's hard to tell, you might not know. So hire a professional trainer in your area that can help you identify what the potential stressors are and give you a workable plan to get out of it. And a workable plan doesn't mean hours and hours. It doesn't mean going to, dog training classes every night or even twice a week for hours on end. Who's got time for that these days? You want to have a predictable daily routine that provides a well-behaved dog. You don't have to spend hours training, but you have to be predictable and you have to be present for them. That's the deal. When they're anxious, a lot of people, well, hey, this guy gets anxious in thunderstorms. I know it's the sound. It is the sound, because he gets just as anxious if the snowplow's in the driveway and it rumbles like thunder. And it's happened last week, and he's shaking. So what did I do? Did I coddle him? No. I just sat silent. I kept doing what I was doing, and I waited until the plow left. Then we went out and we played a game. We played tug, and then we played fetch, and we went for a walk. And then he was, oh, okay. So each time it gets lower and lower. So anxiety-based barking is often caused from separation, from pressure in the environment, like something they haven't been prepared to, haven't been trained or taught to cope with, or unpredictability. And how do you know whether they've been trained to cope with it? Well, generally, dogs are in shelters for a reason. Dogs brought in from other countries often are not taught how to cope with busy city environments or household environments, so they're thrown into this modern household with all these things, all these devices, and it's stressful for them. And you're telling them it's okay, but in fact, to them, it's stressful. So if you have a dog that is exhibiting barking as a result of stress or anxiety, trying to suppress that is going to backfire, because barking inside an apartment or a house is pent up energy, and the dog is crying for help and trying to get out, and they'll go so far as to try to break through a window or break through a door. It's tough, but recognize it for what it is. And the solution becomes getting them out into new places and helping them feel safe. Short trips here and then back home again, not long. Don't flood them with something that they're not ready to cope with. Because anxiety barking is really about coping with their environment. It's not about control. And if you try to suppress it, in other words, you say, okay, I'm going to leave, I'm going to put an anti-bark collar on that dog so he doesn't bark all day long and disturb the neighbors, that behavior is going to pop out somewhere else. He has to do something. He has to be taught to cope with the environment, and they will need an outlet somehow. And suppressing that energy is extremely unhealthy, and it's very risky for you with that dog, because something will happen suddenly and they may light up, and it's not a good outcome. So the final bucket, so we've talked about alert barking, demand barking, barking due to boredom or frustration, and barking due to anxiety or stress. Finally, the final one is probably, as a trainer, if you're a trainer watching this, it would be the one you hear the least about, unless it elevates to something else. And if you're an owner, it's the one that you can enjoy the most. And that is play barking, or barking with play, to try to, they're so happy. I call it their happy dance. They're so happy and they're so excited. They can't contain that energy. It's got to come out somewhere. Pretty near every dog I have here, other than Prince, and Prince antagonizes it. He loves to be chased. So the dogs that chase him, they'll bark because it's just, they're happy. And the first time, well, let me back up and rephrase that. You want to watch the barking that happens, particularly if you're in a multiple dog group, because it can change to stress or fighting in a heartbeat. So you want to listen to the cadence and the tone of the barking, and if you feel that it's getting over the top, you just interrupt. You stop it, call somebody to you, and just interrupt. Let them have a break, and then go back to play again. And they'll learn that this is okay. I've just got to tone it down a little bit. But it is fun. It is their happy dance. But play, like anything, needs structure, and that's why my fulfillment formula is work, which is structured, walk, short jobs, rest, which is taught, and play, which is still structured with rules and boundaries, and then you repeat the cycle throughout the day. And leaders begin the game and leaders end it. So if your dog's bringing you something and shoving it in your face, that's a good opportunity for training. Just cross your arms and look away. And if he walks away, then you can pick up the toy and go, come on, let's go outside. That's training right there. You've just taught some leadership to the dog that says, you can't push me around, but let's go now and play because I really want to play with you. Oftentimes you want to watch. If a fight's going to break out in a dog park, for example, people go to dog parks, they don't understand why the dog was there for 20 minutes, then all of a sudden a fight breaks out. Because dogs will get, just like toddlers, overtired with too much play, and that's when they get irritated and that's when a fight is likely to break out. So be aware of that. But play barking, if you don't like it, then you stop the play. Because, I can hear people saying, now what if we don't like them or want them to play bark because they might bark in our apartment? Then don't encourage the behavior. If you pick up a ball and they start to bark, you just put the ball away and you go and you sit down. End of game. Game doesn't even begin. But if you're okay with it, then go outside, and if they don't, bark. One of the things that's really annoying to me is people bark back at the dog. The dog will bark and you go woof or whatever. I want the dog to communicate on its own level, and I will laugh. Dogs understand human laughter, and encourage them with clapping hands. Yeah, good boy, and keep the game going. But then you still cut it off. Leaders begin the game, leaders end the game, and in the middle there's rules that need to be followed. High energy, once again, that mindless expenditure of energy, just throwing the ball, or chuck it, that creates problems real fast. Both mentally, because the dog can get overloaded, and physically, because it wears on those same muscles all the time. So keep everything in balance. Walking is working, free time is sniffing, that's enrichment, that can be a form of play, and rest, don't want to have them resting all the time, but they do need 12 hours of rest a day, so that's quite a bit. Once again, you want to make sure you put some structure to your play, but enjoy the happy barks, because that's what they are. So we all do this, whether you're a dog owner or a trainer. People often just do something that accidentally reinforces barking. You didn't do it. No one does this on purpose, but we're humans, and humans want to control things. So there's 4 main areas that people drop the ball, so to speak. The first one is they wait too long to intervene because they hope it will go away on its own. We talked about that at the beginning. We just hope that that ignoring it will make it stop. And sometimes it does, because I do it with Prince. Turn your back on him, he stops, he goes, oh, what's that? Or I'll turn and I'll give him a hard stare. If you wait too long to do that, it does actually work very well with him, because I'll look at him and then he'll actually lay down. So you can try that. Eye contact is a direct threat. So if your dog is barking and you look at him with a direct eye contact stare, that's a reprimand in a dog's language. So don't wait too long before you start to interrupt the behavior with that, because it's very easy. It's benevolent. The dog gets it. It's their language. It needs proper timing. Don't wait till they go, and then all of a sudden turn around and look at them and expect that they're going to get it. But it can also backfire. Don't reward it. Don't walk and say, good, quiet, and hand him food. I just don't do that, because here's what happened. You set up the cycle. I bark, she stares at me, I get quiet, I get fed. I'm going to bark again because she stares at me, and I know when she stares at me, I get fed. Don't do that. Just continue on what you're doing. You can label it good, quiet, because the reward for the dog is your calm energy. Don't use food for that, because it will perpetuate the problem. Number 2, not being present. Not being present when the dog is barking. And how many of you are guilty of this? How many? Just put in the comments, yes, that's me. Yelling at the dog when you're not present in their space. So the dog might be in the backyard, he's barking at the neighbors, you're at the kitchen sink, and you go, shut up! And the dog looks up, quiet for a minute, and then he looks back to the trigger again and starts to bark. Or you're in the living room watching TV and somebody comes to the door or walks by the window and the dog lights up. And you sit on the couch and yell at the dog to be quiet. That might work in the moment, but the next day it's going to happen again. So presence is important. You're basically in the dog's mind, you're yelling. By yelling at them, you're joining in the conversation. Think about that. Because they're bark, and they're pack animals, and you're not there as leaders, so they think they've got to take control of this because you don't have their back. All they hear is this chaotic sound in the background, because remember, dogs speak dog, they don't speak English, so what they're hearing is blah, blah, blah. They might know their name, so they might hear their name in there, but it's the tone that they respond to. And you're escalating, which in the dog's mind puts you in a weak energy state and puts them in the position of having to protect the pack, because that's a darn threat. And if it walks away, then the dog wins. They just perpetuated the problem. The third thing that's probably the most common is, and we've all done it. This isn't an accusation. We've all done this. Treat the barking instead of the symptom. Barking, remember, we talked about at the beginning, is information. What message is your dog trying to deliver to you? So rather than trying to suppress the bark, and if you're a trainer, you probably hear this all the time. I bought one of those bark collars from Amazon, and now the dog's a neurotic, gelatinous mess, because they need an outlet for that energy, and they also, like people, they need to be heard. So the important thing is to study why your dog is barking. And trust me, it's a fascinating study to figure it out and to watch. And your dog will love you for it. What is the meaning of the message that they're trying to deliver to you? And then how can you intervene in a way that relates at their level? And generally it means moving into their space, not coddling them, not petting them, not telling them it's okay, and not yelling at them. Instead, letting them know you've got this covered. If they're afraid, you just pick up the leash and away, go, let's go, and you lead the way. If they're happy and you want them to stop barking, you end the game. If they're demand barking, you just don't meet the demand. And if they're alert barking, you let them know, hey bud, thank you, I got it, thanks, I got this, so you're okay now. Give him a job, because now you're in his mind, now you're training. Barking is really a state of mind, and we want to figure out what state of mind the dog is in and act calm, because energy matters the most, and calm creates calm. Once you've learned the meaning of the message your dog's trying to give you, it makes it easier to deliver the right counter message and to communicate on a way that the dog understands. And finally, newly adopted dogs that are jittery, nervous, anxious, and they're barking, and new puppies who bark for whatever reason, because who knows, depending on where they came from. And people ignore that, hoping it will just fade on its own once he realizes he's comfortable and he's safe. Really? Not true. If anything, it will escalate because the dog is not feeling heard. And if you haven't done anything meaningful to change the dynamics or the environment, then the dog sees that as the way to cope with that environment. And if you haven't intervened, then the dog feels leaderless. Feel like there's no one there to help them get through this, so they have to take care of it themselves. The longer it goes on, the more you reinforce the behavior. So ignoring, barking, hoping it will fade on its own, exactly the opposite usually happens. So we've covered a lot of things here, and you can't cover every scenario, but there's 4 key points here to remember. Well, 5 actually. The number 1 point is, if you're blaming the dog, you're projecting the blame the wrong way, because the dog is trying to talk to you and you're not hearing what they're saying. And number 2, rather than whipping the dog or spraying it with water, or people do that, but the more productive long-term solution is to recognize one thing: you are your dog's best training tool. If you're using weapons against the dog and they just see that you're not hearing their message and your energy is off the wall dangerous to them, they might not be your best friend. But if you provide structure in the form of a predictable, consistent daily routine that includes that balance, that fulfillment formula of work, rest, play. Remember, walking is working, off time, off leash time in a park to sniff around is still part of play and can be working because they're doing their dog thing. And you do that in a consistent routine and then repeat, throughout the day, repeat that cycle. Then the dog starts to see you in a different light. Dogs see us in their world. They don't see themselves in our world. And too many times humans try to morph the dog into their world. He should know better than that. My kids don't let that happen. And we don't want that. And you know what? You brought the dog into a den. It's just a little bigger den. And he sees you in his den. So be the leader he needs, because dogs are always willing to change if the humans are willing to change. And leadership doesn't have to be a big deal. Many people misinterpret the meaning of leadership and think it's dominance and aggression and loud. It's quite the opposite. In the dog's world, leaders avoid conflict. Number 2, you have to teach the dog to be calm. It's a trained skill. Teach them to have that off switch. Particularly with herding breeds, we often get calls that say, my dog just, he's doing all these things, he won't settle down. And that's because they have never taught him to settle down. Look at these guys. They're waiting for their off time. It's the end of the day for them. They're in their off time now. They're in their off switch, but they have off switches during the day. And calm is a trained skill. So work on it. You want to have that off switch, and you have to teach it, because if you don't, you get what you pet. And it starts with puppies. So many people will think they get a puppy. How do I keep this puppy busy? Here's the thing. Puppies less than 6 months old need up to 18 hours of sleep every day, up until they're 6 months old. So you want to teach them, rather than keeping them awake all day, teach them just like your toddlers, nap time. Nap time happens here. They might not like it at the beginning, but they'll like it eventually, because it'll be predictable. It'll happen every day in the same way. And number 3, dogs need jobs. So you want to provide them with work that provides them with a purpose, not exhaustion. Throwing the ball or chuck a ball till your arm falls off till the dog is about ready to collapse is not purpose. Teaching them to follow a trail and dig something out of a scent, teaching them to go and retrieve and come back and sit and deliver it to you and swing around and go to another place, or teaching them to grab a tug and use their mouth appropriately and let it go and come back when you say, and let it go and come back when you say, and then be done when you're done. That's purpose. If you have a herding breed, you want to teach it to chase something, and you can do that by dragging something around the floor and give them some sort of an incentive. I don't have him as a herding dog, and he likes to be chased. That's his purpose. But his other purpose is to be alert for me, and when he's alert for me, I acknowledge that. That's a boy, we got this. So acknowledge their purpose, recognize what their DNA is made up of, because you want to have them be fulfilled dog is a tired dog. Exhaustion doesn't mean fulfilled. All it does is mean more chaos in their brain, and that's a state of mind that you want to change. So teach, calm, give them a job, and remember, a predictable daily routine will eliminate a whole lot of things related to the need to correct. And finally, number 5, or 4, I've mentioned this already, that leaders, you want to provide leadership without force. And that's as simple as the dog's barking at the window. You're not going to go over and overpower it. That's not what your dog's looking for. He's looking for you to take charge and listen to his message, and you walk up and you go, it's okay, bud, I got this. Yep, look out the window. Oh yeah, acknowledge what he's telling you. Thanks for letting me know that. Or, Aunt Joan comes to the door and you go, okay, we got this. It's just her. Go to your, like these guys are, go to your place. And the dog starts to understand, you've got this under control. They've done their job. Wow, that's huge training. That's a huge shift in mindset in your dog's brain. Instead of having you yell at the dog and add to the chaos, puts the dog in the leadership role. But when you come up and calmly basically diffuse the situation, that's what they're looking for in leadership. So it's small changes. If you do that the same way every day, don't worry about taking the dog into a big obedience class or running it for an hour every day on the hiking trails. Just have a schedule that works for you, that the dog can predict, that includes that balance of walking and working and resting and playing with engagement with you, and teach that off switch. Little things, that can be 15-minute increments throughout the day, maybe 3 times a day. There's 45 minutes, but there's a lot going on in the dog's head. That's how you start to eliminate barking in the long run. It just goes away. There's no need for the dog to bark. They don't have any need to expend any energy because they've already been fulfilled. That's why we call it the fulfillment formula.